Yeah, that sounds good. We'll get started. We're going to change up a little bit today. So what we're going to do is we're going to have the guest speak first. Though kind of Jenny's a little limited for time, and then we'll go and launch into programming your channel. That is how to put content on your channel and what types of content to put on your channel in order to maximize the impact of an audience. But let's just 12 screens up here with talking to Jenny. And about your series, which is Black as a web series. So let's start. Just how about introduce yourself? What do you do? Your role in the industry?
Yeah. Hi. I'm Jenny McMahon from Rebel Films, and I've been a documentary filmmaker, producer for about 20 years. And through that time, I've mainly the main focus was of our company was broadcast documentaries. So short form, 6 half hours, 4 half hours, the occasional 1 off hour. That was kind of the mainstay of our work and our business. And then about 4 years ago, my business partner David Batty, the director, we both kind of got contacted by these guys in Arnhem Land, young guys in Arnhem Land, who were big fans of Bush Mechanics, which was a program that we made, 20 odd years ago. And they'd kind of grown up with it. And Bush Mechanics has a really special place in the hearts, I guess, of Aboriginal people throughout the country. It was probably one of the first times that they saw their own kind of, day-to-day life portrayed in a way that, was just gave an insight into how those guys lived, and, car culture and a lot of humor, and it was very immediate and people really responded well to it, and it was in language. So these guys in Ramingenning in Arnhem Land had kind of grown up with that. And they sent us a little video that they'd actually made and that the clinic had put on YouTube. And it was pretty wild, it was pretty rough, but, they obviously had a lot of potential. So that's kind of where it began. And David went up there and spent some time and just literally in a matter of, 3 days, shot some great material. Came back, and we just kind of thought we wanted to do something different. We're disillusioned, I guess, with a little bit disillusioned with television, and saw the opportunities online and wanted to, we just wanted to mix it up and try something new. So, and also the kind of material that David captured just in those few days it was high energy. There was a lot going on, and but it wasn't necessarily, structured in a way that would, sustain longer form television. So we thought the material suited the platform really, and we cut 3 episodes of that, and that kind of started the ball rolling with the interest in the series. And we kind of started up with a Facebook presence first and built our audience through that. And from that, ABC then picked up the series and then commissioned us to go back and actually make, we did 24 5-minute episodes. That was series 1. And that was released first up on iView. And then, because we'd already had a Facebook presence and a bit of a fan base, really, we continued to release content on Facebook whilst the series, and really the purpose of that was to drive viewers to iView to actually watch it. We just wanted people to see it. So that was kind of the focus of that engagement, and it went incredibly well. And we did that for probably the first 6 to 12 months of the project, until our license allowed us to exploit it ourselves on YouTube. And so that's kind of how we got to YouTube, basically. And at that time too, we had this really strong audience and following on Facebook, and we kind of naturally thought, oh, we'll just kind of post a few links on Facebook, and everyone will go over to YouTube and watch the series. And of course, that didn't happen. It's the two platforms don't speak to each other very well. Well, Facebook certainly doesn't speak to YouTube very well. So we found that the audience on Facebook stayed on Facebook, and we had to, and then we found a completely different audience on YouTube. And I have to confess too that, I mean, we were completely green in this area. I mean, as I said, we've kind of spent 20. I mean, I've been a producer for 20 years. David's been he's been directing for 35. And it's like we're old farts, kind of. So it wasn't naturally kind of our space, but what we've always been interested in, and I give credit to David for this too, is that he's always been very interested in audience engagement. So he loved the fact that he could kind of get the content out and start that dialogue and that relationship with the audience. So that was really our motivating factor, I think, at that point. And also, we kind of felt a responsibility to the content as well. Like, the guys had really, it meant a lot to them. They were incredibly proud of their involvement. And we really wanted to see more, I guess it was exciting for us to see an audience that would not normally engage with Indigenous content just completely embrace the series and the guys. So that was, that in itself was incredibly satisfying, I guess. And also just being able to, directly see, I mean, for instance, we had the series on iView. It would take, trying to get information from the broadcaster about how it was going, and how many views and all this kind of stuff. It was kind of like state secrets. I mean, we were getting stats, but being able to be on a platform like YouTube and see almost in real time, what your audience is doing, what content they're watching, what they're responding to, etc., was very empowering as content creators. So that became the kind of the motivating factor, I guess. It was it just felt like, I mean, particularly as the industry's changed, even for established established players, I guess, like ourselves, we just kind of felt increasingly that the broadcast space was just harder and harder to operate in. So it just kind of felt, it was liberating and empowering in a way to, to see how you could work with your own material and have more autonomy and control over that. That's probably long.
No, it's good. It's good. It's good context. Yeah. And you said you start putting it on Facebook, and then the audience didn't transfer. The question there specifically, what was the content on Facebook and YouTube the same content?
Look, in the beginning, because of we had a holdback on releasing the whole series in its entirety on other platforms for 12 months. So what we were doing on Facebook, we were cutting up. We were posting segments. So we do cut downs of episodes, or like some really kind of breakout moments of that involve cars, or car hacks, and really kind of really black ass hero moments. So we were experimenting with that kind of stuff, and we really, I guess too, because we had a lot of material in the can, and we also had some material that was not quite enough for, like, say, to have another episode, or just really didn't fit into the overall narrative of the series. So, we had a lot of other content that was not part of the series, which we also exploited, which was good. Yeah. And then we caught up with the guys during the year, and David shot some more stuff. I mean, really just like on a phone, and put those out. So we were able to kind of keep feeding the audience with that content. And then YouTube became a way of actually every week, and that's what we did. We did every week. We released an episode. I guess.
Right. Okay. So how did that audience develop over YouTube? Because if the audience didn't transfer from Facebook and you were building from, so how do you build that audience on YouTube?
Well, this kind of getting back to my comment about us being very green, is that we didn't know how to do it. It was I mean, there must have been some crossover with Facebook. I mean, for sure, but it wasn't like I think at the time when we started the channel, we would have had over 100,000 Facebook followers, and that certainly we probably only had about we wouldn't have even had we were probably about 10 on YouTube, 10,000. But yeah, by the time we launched YouTube, we had enough subscribers that all our content was monetized. So we were over 10,000 subscribers when we started releasing content.
So you released weekly is what you were saying?
Yeah. So I guess I should add to that. What we did start is in that 12-month period, we did start by releasing just pretty much the same content that we put out on Facebook. We just kind of thought, well, it's out there. We'll just stick it on YouTube and see what happens. So obviously things did start to pick up, and at one point there was a real turning point with Series 1 where and we still don't know whether this was just a completely random YouTube algorithm thing, but it was kind of around the NAIDOC week time, and so maybe someone in YouTube was aware of that, I don't know, or their AI was, but we turned up in recommended on people's recommended list, and we started getting all these comments about people literally saying, what the hell is this, like, why this was recommended to me while I was watching such and such, or a gaming thing or whatever, and it's like, this is so random, what's YouTube doing, this is so random. But people were actually saying, but I love it, this is great. So and so really, that's when that happened, like just in the space of that week, our subscribers I think they probably doubled. And it was around about that time that we probably went from about 30,000 to possibly around 60. So, and that I guess it's just that exponential factor when when certain content turns up in the recommended feed.
Yeah.
Also, there was a lot of chatter. There was a lot of talk because people were saying things. I've never seen anything like this before, and and as I said, it's like, this is so random. This is totally random, but I love it. So it was one of those fortuitous strokes of luck, I guess. Yeah. And then, of course, we did a second series, and followed on with that. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at now.
So how has having it distributed online helped you overall with the goals of the show and generally as a production company?
Look, as a production company, I don't think it's. I mean, it's been great. It's been fantastic in terms of our own, like personal satisfaction with seeing how our content is going, and like I said, being more autonomous. It has created. We certainly. Hasn't created an income that you could certainly live off, and the amount of hours, like, we put in an extraordinary amount of time in those first 12 months. I mean, David in particular, he was constantly monitoring the feedback and the comments and the conversations and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, if you looked at it as on a per hour basis, you wouldn't take it up as a career at that point. But it was, I think. I think I don't regret the investment of time at all. And like even now, we haven't, for lots of different reasons, we haven't been able to release any new content for, I mean, it's almost getting on to 12 months. It's a long time. And it's been really interesting kind of re-engaging with it and seeing that, I mean, particularly the last month, the last 2 months probably with COVID, the views have gone way back up, and our audience in the US has probably doubled. So, I think, and a lot of people, I mean, most people, that are kind of working in this space, YouTubers and YouTube creators that are totally creating content just for YouTube, would say, it is a long game. You don't achieve kind of anything with this overnight, and I certainly feel that with with Black Ads. So everything we've kind of done to date is almost like an investment, and like I said, I don't regret that investment of time and resources at all. And really, it was really just we're essentially pretty small unit. It's really just myself and and David in the company. So it was kind of something that we really just took on. It's a bit of a personal project, I guess.
You highlighted a couple of interesting points there, and I'll take that apart, especially when we go into the seminar series, guys. It's like how you inadvertently program your channel to end up where you were with your subscribership. Content was very good, but I think the way you released it really helped. Obviously, I don't think you knew what you were doing when you did it, but you did a couple of things quite right in that release. Which ended up being pretty good, especially the way you released it, and think around trending, which we'll talk about, and I'll show you guys some stuff around that soon. You also highlight another thing we get asked a lot about, and that is revenue models based around the content, because it is difficult to monetize purely on ad spend because ad spend is so lumpy. Now, we'll talk about that tomorrow in our final day on this series, but also explain different ways people have monetized these series, or at least leverage them into something else. So two really good points.
One other thing I'd add there too is that, my colleagues, I guess, more, kind of doco people and what have you. And, I've also kept an eye on the initiatives that, the agencies run, Screen Australia and what have you, with online content. And one thing that I notice, and feel strongly about too, is that is volume. And I think that's what really put us ahead of, I think that's why we were able to transition from a kind of more, kind of broadcasty kind of model, is that we had volume. That first series was 24 episodes, and then we would have had at least another, I think on the channel now we've got about 80 pieces of content, something like that, which, given the nature of it, it's probably pretty good. But sometimes I kind of see these things and do worry about the shorter form stuff, because I think even if you've got a core series, you still need a lot of other, that would be my advice to people too, is just to have a lot of other content around it.
Yeah, that is a good tip, especially around trying to program it out to get people to watch it. I think one of the questions, like, what have you learned from the experience? I mean, obviously, you were very new to YouTube, and I guess Kevin, you've also been through a couple of the programs, and you're currently in one of the programs we're running at the moment, the Accelerator. What have you sort of learned now about the YouTube world or the online world that you didn't know before, that you sort of maybe wish you'd known?
Well, the really obvious things, which are, I guess, how you present the content, really. And like I said, we're fortunate we could roll something out every week, but I think I think I always felt like we could have done more about how people find the content, whatever. That's I still haven't quite got my head around that. But the basic things that has been drummed into me, particularly doing the Accelerator course, which I'm very fortunate to be participating in right now, thumbnails, and thumbnails, and really, looking at your analytics as well, like understanding what your audience is doing, and to not be scared of trying different things. And I think that's probably a mistake that we may have made, or it wasn't so much a mistake, but we just kind of didn't realize. I think, we put stuff out there and mistakenly or otherwise kind of thought, well, once it's out there, that's it, set in stone. It's like, and it's not the case at all. We should be kind of constantly monitoring what's going on and tweaking things that that you might think should be doing better, and have a look at how that might be as simple as changing the thumbnail or having better graphics, or giving it a better title or what have you. So I think the big lesson for me that I'm still kind of learning now and exploring is, I think initially we approached YouTube as almost like a broadcast platform.
Mm.
So it's kind of like, okay, we've got this content, we'll stick it out there, and it's not just that. It's not a one-way street. It is community. It is about engagement, and it is about I think the big takeouts for me at the moment are, and what I want to work on, is actually how to present that content. Even now, just kind of go back and tweak how we could kind of curate some of those experiences of the content that we have, so that audiences could discover it in different ways. So it's not just a linear thing. Like they might discover episode 6 of series 1, and then kind of go, oh, okay, there's more of this whole, now I'll kind of go back and I might work my way through the series, or I might not. Doesn't really matter. But finding ways in which, if they do just come upon a discrete episode, that experience, that they've gotten into that, and so it's actually about how we, as as we are programmers of our own channel, how we curate those experiences, I guess, is what I'm most interested in at the moment.
Brilliant. Okay, well, look, there's some really good stuff, and we will unpack that in the second part. But Caitlin, what I might do is, while we have Jen here, a couple of questions from the audience. Jen, are you happy to answer some questions?
Yeah, sure.
There's quite a lot of questions. There's a lot of interest in the fact that obviously you're factual, and it's great to get some kind of insight from that. And Bobby Lee certainly has a few questions. So I guess specifically, the first one is: did you put the same content on YouTube and Facebook?
Not initially. So Facebook started with kind of we were going for, we were trying to get kind of virality, I guess, on Facebook. We were really going for those standout moments that would that people would want to share and comment on and what have you. And so we really pushed. We really we really went through all our content and purposefully tried to find those moments, and with that intention. And then when the license allowed, and then we started as well, when we realized that we weren't able to really migrate the audience from Facebook to YouTube. We just kind of thought, oh, well, we'll start putting the same content on YouTube and just kind of see what happens. Just kind of, well, we've got nothing to lose. And that was okay, but not as successful as when we actually launched the series properly on YouTube, because we were then able to build up, it's like a normal kind of more kind of standard YouTube programming, where creators are releasing new content every week. So we certainly wouldn't have, for instance, just kind of gone, oh, okay, we've got the whole series, bang, it's all now on YouTube. We're very, very conscious of, no, we need to release this weekly and build audience expectation and get people wanting to kind of come back and watch it next week. And that was very successful.
Great.
Yeah.
Now there's kind of two parts to this question, both like two kind of sections, but it's about the stats and the data. So what stats or data would you have liked to see from ABC and YouTube? And from ABC's perspective, is it something that you could access as part of your contract with them? I don't know if that's a question that you can answer, but.
Look, I think it's just kind of commercial in confidence stuff. I'm not saying that I'm not going to answer that because it's, you know, my commercial in confidence. I just think, what happened in, you know, none of the streaming platforms really report publicly on, you know, on who watches what.
Yeah.
You know, you can get information about how many subscribers people have and what have you, but unless something goes really well, you kind of tend not to hear anything about it. But I will say a conversation that I had in the you know, before Black As was released on iView. I said to the then commissioning editor, you know, like, what's your expectation of this? Because also this was the first time that we'd released something that hadn't been on free-to-air television.
Yeah.
So, and, you know, I kind of said, so what's your expectation for the series, you know? And they said, oh, you know, look, we'd be happy if, you know, if you kind of got about around 150,000 views, what plays, you know, we'd be really happy with that. I was like, oh, okay, I thought that was pretty low expectation, you know, at the time. And I can say that we reached, you know, 1 million views on series 1. And that was, you know, I mean, that blew everyone away in terms of, and, you know, at that time it was, I think at that time it was the most popular factual series. You know, other things have come along since, but they've also had, you know, the benefit of free-to-air broadcast and iView. So we never had the benefit of people discovering this via free-to-air. So it was only ever discovered online. So, and then on series 2, you know, they just kind of like, oh, you know, it's different, you know, blah, blah. And they're just a little bit less forthcoming. But I think that's just because of the general, you know, not so much about not wanting the creators so much to know, but, you know, just less transparent, I think, with their reporting, because none of the streaming platforms were doing it.
Cool. And James wanted to know how you found fundraising experience on WeFunder.
GoFundMe.
Is that what you used? I hadn't heard of WeFunder, so I just wanted to ask a question.
No. So we've done 2 crowdfunds for Black As. The very first one for with the pilot. I mean, we went and shot that, but we then needed to raise funds for, what did we do? Oh yeah, no, that's right. And yeah, so we self-funded the, you know, the pilots, and then we crowdfunded for series 1. Actually, we invested the money that we raised through crowdfunding in series 1, and that was like 70 grand. So that was pretty huge too, and that was extraordinary amount of work. That was on Possible, and then just recently, well, actually, you know, late last year, we just kind of wanted to go back and shoot a bit more material, and just decided, look, we'll see how we go. We've got an audience, and we'll see if we can, you know, crowdfund just enough to kind of cover our costs of getting back up there and shooting some more content. So we did that through GoFundMe, and that was quite good. But, you know, I think we raised, you know, 25,000. But we still, you know, I kind of wasn't going for much more around about that amount anyway. And look, we didn't put as much effort into crowdfunding the second time, I have to say. I mean, it took it was a huge effort with Possible. I think the whole crowdfunding scene has shifted, I mean, GoFundMe is fine. If people put in, they put in, but, you know, we weren't kind of flogging it. There's other different models now.
And just we'll make this the final question, just in the interest of time, because I realize we're already halfway through. How are you specifically monetizing your presence on YouTube?
Well, through ads. So we get revenue through, Google ads. And, there was also a moment too where, you kind of, the pre-roll ads, when things are kind of improving, when the quality of the advert so that was also a moment where we kind of, you kind of go, we're kind of like, oh, right, okay, Subaru's running ads. That's good. That's better. So, something like that, as opposed to some obscure kind of, so yeah, like we've got that. We sell, we amazingly, we still sell DVDs, and at different times we've had merch. We haven't at the moment, just you just kind of, you go through phases too of how much you kind of ramp that stuff up. But other, that's what I'm looking forward to. That's what we're going to dive deeper into in the accelerator program, is how to extend your kind of revenue model. Cool. I guess, because at the moment it has been through advertising, and you are at the mercy of of the algorithm when it comes to that. It's you don't whilst you can have control over your content, you don't actually, or you don't have control about what either Facebook or YouTube decide to do, and then how people find your stuff. I should just briefly too say that after we'd fully released the series on YouTube, we then got invited by Facebook saying, because you've got X amount of followers and all this kind of stuff, you can also monetize on Facebook. And that was actually, and so then we kind of went, okay, well, different audience, we'll do it again. So we put it up in a similar way, once a week, and that also went very well.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, I guess overall, if you think about it, this is something that's been going for 4 years, and at different times, it's it's definitely paid off.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Well, I think we'll leave it there for the questions, just so we can kind of get stuck into the presentation part of today.
I'm sure we've got lots of far more interesting things to tell you now.
Yeah, that's great.
No,
it's good. It's good to hear how this actually plays out in real life.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. All right. Well, I'll hand over to you guys. Am I okay to say goodbye?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, good luck, everyone.
Cheers.
Thank you so much for joining us.
See ya.
Cheers. Good luck. Bye.
Cheers.
See
you. Okay, cool. All right, well, let's just launch straight into the next part, because it's good. So Jen highlighted a couple of really key points which we will cover, especially around series-based content. Now, not everyone does create series-based content. There's a lot of different types of content. I'm going to cover some of how you program on YouTube, the models that work, how you find what to program, and the structures around that. And then if you have any questions at the end, I'll answer that. Let's just launch into overall programming. So basically the idea of programming your channel properly is that you can build the right type of engagement, because if you program it correctly, people will be more engaged with the content that comes out. You gotta remember, if you ever put up a one-off video or just randomly put out content, it'll always be searching for an audience, right? But when you consistently program, you build ongoing engagement with the audience, you tell the system what your content's all about, who's interested in it, you get people coming in, and you can build something that is much better for the viewer, and then therefore much better for the system in order to promote you more and more. So consistent programming always does help. And like Jen, I think, inadvertently went ahead and created consistent programming through the amount of content she had, but like I said, we'll cover that shortly. Now, I don't know how many people have seen this, but it's been around forever. So this is YouTube's programming model, like what they'd recommend. And it's been here for literally forever and ever. And it goes under 3 key areas called Hero, Hub, and Help. It used to be called Hero, Hub, and Hygiene, but then the Hygiene but really confused people, I think, or put them off one of the two. And this is 3 different types of content you've got to program together, and I'll explain them. So basically, hero content is things like big tentpole, key impression kind of thing, like, wow, this is amazing type of content. Hub content is things like your core programming, like the core of your channel, that keeps people coming back and keeps people engaged. And help content is basically inspired by the viewer, or basically answers questions the viewer has, hence the name help. So that's basically the three broad types of content which you can program. Now, ideally, most channels have this to some varying degree, especially if you want to be an online creator with a career online and develop long-term programming. This does help. Not everyone does, but I'll explain sort of how you segment them apart. So the idea with Hero is more about browsing. When people are browsing through, they see this video and go, wow, that looks really interesting. Jimmy collaborated with Nike to create this mega around the world trip. It's inspiring. I want to check that out. Hub content is like, oh, wow, look, Jimmy's creating this regular online series. It looks really good. I'm really engaged. I want to subscribe because of that. And help content is more searchable. So you could be searching for a topic and it comes up, Jimmy builds a skateboard. I want to know how a skateboard's built. So you're actually looking for something specifically, you find it, and that's relevant content. So those are basically the three types of content in a nutshell. Now, like I said, most people will say, like, how do I put all these different types of stuff on my channel? And, what about my format, like we talked about yesterday? Well, this is more about stuff that fits into your format. So your format is the structure. This is more about the subject of that. So I'll give you an example of a vlogger, because people think vlogging is the hardest one to fit this into. So there's a very famous vlogger called Casey Neistat, over 10 million subscribers now. But even on his channel, and as a vlogger, right, he's still able to create these various types of content and program them out. So, for example, his hero content is typically big collaborations or big trips he does, such as a video called Make It Count he did in conjunction with Nike, which was basically Nike gave him 100 grand, and he basically blew that in 10 days, traveling around the world, making this video. And it was super popular. I think it was the biggest bit of branded content of the year on YouTube at that time. And that's really hero content. That's really inspiring. And then his hub content is the general vlogging, or his episodic content, or his regular content, which gets people overall engaged and wants to subscribe because they come back for that very regularly, right? So that's something he always has. And then he actually, within that vlog content, also creates help content. Now, he knows his audience is typically younger males. Younger males like lots of gadgets. They like things like electric skateboards. And one of the issues with electric skateboards, for example, is you can't easily take them onto a plane because of the battery size. So, he did how to get a boosted board, which is an electric skateboard, onto a plane, which is something that his audience would be searching for, right? And he builds that back into his vlog. So he's smartly been able to use all three types of content and programming it out so that he's bringing in people. So inspiring people, keeping people generally entertained, and when people are searching for things that can come across as content, the right audience can come across as content, and then be hooked into all his hub content. So he's really developed a very, very smart model. He's probably the smartest vlogger out there, but it's so beneath the surface. You watch it, you just, generally can enjoy the experience if you're an audience, but you don't realize that he has very smartly, and I'm pretty sure he would have done it tactically because he's a very smart guy, especially when it comes to programming, that created all these core elements to bring people into the channel. And with that, obviously increasing opportunities to do brand deals and build better connection with the audience. So it really does work. Now, the way you can program this out, like not everyone's going to be the same. This is just a general, please look at this as a very, very general approach to programming, okay? The idea with help is that it's always on. That means people, no matter what time it is of the year or in history, they're always searching for that topic. That means it's always going to bring people in. Whereas usually your hub content is probably a little less searchable, like especially if you're a vlogger, you're doing regular things, or you have episodic content, which people don't know the name of the episode. That will be regularly there, but typically might not be as easy to bring people in with, but it's very regular. And then you've got your hero content, which you physically can't capably do all the time, or many times throughout the year. So you typically do a couple of episodes of that throughout the year. So 2 to maybe 5 hero bits of content a year, very regular hub content, and help content, which is always bringing people in, is generally the way we look at it. So when we look at a channel, we basically break it apart and say, well, do people have hero, hub, and help content? What is the proportion? is it all working properly, and is it programmed properly to start bringing people into the channel, keep them engaged and keep them inspired, because that is very key for long-term success on YouTube, but also on a lot of platforms. And you'll actually see on many other platforms, this general model is applied whether or not the creator knows they're doing it, in order to keep people engaged and entertained. So it is a very popular model. Like I said, it doesn't always apply to everyone. For those of you who are interested in long-term success on online platforms, on YouTube in particular, this is very popular and it does work, and the psychology showed it has worked again and again. But it does vary from creator to creator in different proportions, and we're completely aware of that. What I will do is take one level down and take apart, I mentioned things like content that's always bringing people in versus perhaps trending content. And that's basically how we divide up the two core areas of content as well. Okay, so we call them trending content and evergreen content. So trending content is basically something that is trending. That means it is popular at some point in time due to something happening in the environment or something that is pertinent, but it's at one point in time will be very popular. Whereas evergreen popular, such as help content, is always being searched for. So throughout the year, for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, people will always be looking for it, such as, how to fix a door. People will always be looking to how to fix a door. So that's evergreen content. Whereas if scientists discovered a new bit of wood, a silly example, 4 doors, you could have a video on, new wood discovered to make the ultimate door, and that could be a trending bit of content because people are really inspired or excited about it at the time. And typically this balance is important for channels because you want to take advantage of trends that are happening, but you also want to program out and have content that's always bringing people in because it's very, very searchable, okay? So I've got 2 examples here. One is evergreen content, guitar lesson, how to play Hotel California, because people will always want to learn how to play that song and it'll always be popular, right? So it may not be peaking like crazy, but throughout the year, if you look at the graph, people are generally interested in finding out how to play that. That's evergreen, great to bring people in. Whereas in a music example, again, something trending might be how to play a particular song that is very popular with a series at the time. So I've given the example of, a song called Toss a Coin to Your Witcher from the Witcher series, right? Now, the Witcher series came out in December last year, and then there was this song in the series called Toss a Coin to Your Witcher, which was sung by a character, and it became extremely popular, and people were doing covers left, right, and center. So that was trending content. It was very popular. So you had all these people jump on that trend. Now, the way you can decide on how to do this is basically by using a couple of tools. And the first tool we generally recommend, if you have an idea, is Google Trends. So Google Trends is free. You just type Google Trends into Google and it comes up with a search, and it lets you search the web, and it lets you search YouTube specifically, and it lets you search geographically and by a time frame as well. So you can see how things trend over time. So you can see, well, Hotel California, is it popular this year, last year, 5 years ago, and see the general trend is always on. So that's a good idea to make that content. But if you wanted to see, for example, the song Toss a Coin to Your Witcher and how it's trending, you could also type that in. So I'll give you an example to show you how the guy in the previous one, Dan Vask, who created this video clip on his rendition of Toss a Coin to Your Witcher. I'll show you the Google Trends graph here. Okay, so the red line is the term The Witcher, the TV show The Witcher. So as you can see, probably when it was announced before August, very popular. And then as it was released, it really peaked in popularity as people were searching for it, and that was December. Then rolling down as it came through. And then I did a comparison between that and Toss a Coin to Your Witcher being the actual content of the song. And as you can see, that peaked a little bit after, which actually came right at the beginning of January. So once people actually heard it, like as you can see, the blue line is completely flat to that point. Once people saw the show and said, wow, this is a cool song, it was immediately searched for. So it trended very heavily. And that was probably right at the beginning of January. And Dan Vask released his video right at the beginning of January, right as it was trending. Now that can be extremely popular because you are basically riding this massive wave of inspiration and excitement. And it can lead to great things for a channel and bring a lot of people in the door. And that could be a real hero moment, right? So I've got a graph. Sorry, guys, I might be on the wrong one. Yeah, I've got a graph here showing Dan Bask's channel and how that got a bump. So basically, it was moving along, not doing great things. And then he released this video, whether he did it strategically or not. And people looked at it and said, man, this is amazing, right? And he picked up about 200,000 subscribers based pretty much on this video. But then you can see over time, people stopped, they looked at the rest of his channel, he developed new fans, and he generally started to get an upwards trend on his channel because so many more people were aware of his content and then watching his content. So it shows that having a catalog of evergreen or good content and then having occasionally trending content can bring all this audience in and let them see what you have available on your channel, which is very, very helpful. So think about evergreen content, think about trending content, think about the mix of that, and use tools like Google Trends to help you understand how your content might work. Now, there's one more tool you can use is the YouTube search to determine what content is worth making. This is really simple. You basically go to YouTube and you start typing in your keywords. So for example, sci-fi web series, you type that in and it'll automatically show you all the popular searches underneath that, right? So you can see what is actually popular, what are people actually searching for, and that can help shape what you're making in terms of content, all right? So that's a nice simple one. Combine that with Google Trends and you can do very, very well. Now, once again, people are going to ask, what about a limited series? So just suppose you do have a web series or a limited run of content, what are you going to do? You can still use these tools. So for example, you can use Google Trends to search around your topic. That can help with seasonality, it can help with naming, and it can help with related trends. Because one thing Google Trends does is when you do the search, down the bottom, it'll show you where in the world is trending, what season is trending throughout the year. It could be trending at certain times. And you could also look at related trends. So down the bottom, it says, what is related to the search you're doing right now? And that really helps you understand, well, how am I positioning my show? Is it being positioned at the right time? Am I releasing it at the right time? Can it, correlate with something else that's happening? So now I think Jen mentioned that there was a point that combined with NAIDOC Week when there was a lot of search, it really got promoted well. Now, her show could have been promoted because if there was a lot of interest around an area at a certain time, it can generally resurface content connected to it. And then more people become aware of it. And it can really help create more momentum for a series you create. So having a series maybe around sci-fi, for example, if you released it around when there was a big sci-fi convention in the country or in other countries, or releasing special episodes around then, you can ride that wave of popularity. People look at your content and are very interested in it. You can use YouTube search to determine similar series. Now, this is really useful. Find out who else is doing series like yours. What has been their response? How did they name it? What are the comments like? What are the people searching for? What are people talking about? And you can use that to build an idea of, well, how to program out the content, what seems to be working, what do people seem to really like, and how are people naming it, or how are creators naming it, for example, which is also really useful. Jen also mentions as well, they released the episodes over a series of weeks. Now that's great, because basically you're putting content out there. The system has time to look at who's watching it and serve it out to new people and serve it out to more people. So what we generally recommend for a series is you put out a couple, or like a core body of episodes, maybe 2 or 3 episodes, and then release the content over a certain amount of time, so that the system has time to understand who the audience is and start serving out to more of those people. Whereas if you dump it all on at once, you might not get the momentum you're after, and the system has nothing else to serve it to after that time. So always think about maybe having a little bit of a back catalog and then releasing it over a period of time. That time period completely depends on how much content you have and how you actually need to release it yourself. And finally, for a limited series, have a good think about your launch. When we work with creators who are doing web series, the launch is really important because we want to get as much momentum as possible at launch. So the system has as much data as possible to say, okay, this is what we're doing, this is what the channel's about, this is the content, this is who likes it. Then when we start releasing more content, it serves it out to the right people. Plus, a lot of videos get the biggest amount of viewership in the first couple of days they release. So the launch strategy is very important. And remember, you are after, and I mentioned this on the first day, you're after the right audience, not just a convenient one, right? So you want an audience who you know will like your content, not just, you know, your mom, dad, dog, whoever will just give it a quick like. You want people going to stay and watch it. So planning that at launch is very important about how well the content's going to do going forward, because it starts to help the system create association, and start serving it out to the right people. Plus, it gives you a nice big boost when you're launching your channel to have a whole bunch of people come in and view your content. Okay, so sorry, we're always rushing through because we're running out of time. But I do want to get to some questions if we have any. So Caitlin.
Oh, there we go. I'm back. It always just takes a few seconds. We have questions, absolutely. Let's start up here. So I want to say Ju, if I've pronounced your name wrong, I apologize completely. What are your thoughts on releasing a web series simultaneously on several online platforms? Or is it better to have a strategy that releases on different platforms at one time? One at a time. So like staggered across all the platforms, or all at once on all the platforms?
I think the problem with doing that is if you release the same thing on all the platforms, you're basically, all these different audiences are in different places. One is if someone watches on YouTube and it's the same thing on Insta and Facebook, they're not going to watch it again. There's no point. So what you're possibly doing by doing that is segmenting your audience into all these different areas. Also, your series might not be suitable to all the platforms, right? So for example, it might not work well on Instagram because I know people watch web series. It might do okay on Facebook, but only get like, you know, only the first 10 seconds watch, because that's, you know, a lot of people watch that way on Facebook. And you'll start segmenting out your audience. So I probably wouldn't launch them all sequentially on all the different platforms. I'd pick one as your core and use the other platforms to promote the content, or use little clips of the content. Ideally create content that is specific for that platform, like maybe behind the scenes video and images for Insta, short, sharp clips for Facebook, and start bringing people into YouTube, because that gives it a big boost on your channel and gets the system understanding what it's about, but also brings a specific audience to your channel, which you can then manage and build that community. Because the other danger of putting it across multiple platforms is you've got to try and manage multiple platforms. And that is, I've very rarely seen that done by, you know, one or two people. It often needs a team of people to do it well. So from a management point of view, but also I think from a strategic point of view, I would always keep a core platform and then bring people in, unless it's a very specialized platform, like a new sci-fi short film platform opens up and you want to promote it there as well. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. You can do that as well.
Great.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to flag, there are so many questions today. I don't think we're going to get to all of them, but I will, now that we've asked you to register, we have all your email addresses. So we're going to copy them down and get back to you after the session, because there are quite a lot of questions today. So one of the questions I think will be really relevant for everybody is how, apart from thumbnails and titles, how can you actually get your videos like as a recommended on YouTube for people?
Yeah, okay. So apart from thumbnails and titles, thumbnails and titles doesn't necessarily create any more recommendations. What generally happens is that your content, the system creates associations with your content once it understands what your content's all about, and then serves it in a way that gets suggested to other people, right?
Yeah.
So the best thing you can do is, like I said, get the right audience to watch it. So for example, if you're launching a sci-fi series, if you get like a bunch of sci-fi fans in, like you promote it to sci-fi fans, you get sci-fi people who are really going to enjoy the content, and it gets out, and the system sees, oh, 80% of this audience are actually sci-fi fans. I understand that, and they're staying and watching a lot of it. I'm going to then serve it out to more people who I know who are like this, right? And then it starts going into suggested content for other people. And coming up with people who it thinks creates an association. So I think I mentioned this on the first day, but there's a couple of ways the system filters content. One by content filtering, one by collaborative filtering. Content filtering is basically, Jimmy watches content A is linked to content B, therefore it serves content B to Jimmy. Or, Jimmy and Sarah both watch a bunch of videos on airplanes, then Sarah goes away and watches a video on airports, and because that's connected, and because they had a general interest, it serves it back to her. So that's a very nutshell approach to a very complex system. But those associations are important, and that's why it's important to get the right audience watching as much of the content as possible. It's not like a TV network where you're trying to make everyone happy. You want that specific audience who are actually going to enjoy your content, watching more of your content. And that's how it will get served to more of the right people and get them to suggest it more. The thumbnails and titles will just help people click on that.
Okay, great. And what kind of steps would you suggest in maximizing the use of tags and keywords for your videos? And how do you use YouTube to maximize your SEO? Like, so are there ways that you can do that?
I think I understand the question. Tags are, so video tags are I think a relic of an older YouTube.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Where you can still put them in a video. You can add tags, and it's good practice. I'd still add tags to a new video, but the system doesn't care that much about them anymore. The guys who program the algorithms, actually the guy who manages the team who programs the algorithms, said spend like 99% of your metadata time on doing the thumbnail and title, 99%, 0.5% description, and then like 0.5% on everything else, including tags. So tags aren't as important anymore because it doesn't need tags to figure out what your content's about. It can listen and sort of watch your content, create associations, and that's more valuable.
Yeah.
Because it knew that people could put out tags and manipulate the system. So it doesn't put as much weight into that anymore. That said, I would still put them in as decent practice, especially if a very new channel and it's looking at different parameters and doing different tests on your channel. I put them in. But where you want to use a keyword, for example, is in your title, because that's still valuable. A keyword for your title, like, for example, if you're releasing a sci-fi action series, sci-fi web series, put in sci-fi web series at the end of your title for a video. That would be useful.
Yeah. Okay. And Curtis wants to know, what's the best way to promote your content besides posting on Facebook, Instagram, like social media pages, to expand your audience? Is there any other ways you can do that?
Yeah, I mean, you can, like, I think we talked about that the last couple of days as well. You can use advertising if you really want. I haven't really seen it work really well, and I wouldn't advertise all your content. Like, if you have a trailer or a special promo, you might want to put a better ad spend behind that, but you also have to know what you're doing. When you gotta get that in front of the right people. If you just put a general ad spend, it just goes out to everyone, and then you get the wrong audience watch it again. So generally, you can do that. I probably would recommend it. The best way to do it is to have a very smart social media strategy around it. Like if you're releasing on YouTube, for example, before you get to the launch, like even a month before, start building an audience around it, put behind the scenes, maybe footage and clips on Insta, short, sharp segments on Facebook. Facebook's great to build a general audience, a general community around stuff, get people interested in it. And that way, that will be the promotion that brings the right people in, which promotes the video from there. I think that organic promotion is good. I think a channel that did it, I think Ross On, when they were releasing that show, I think they did it a long period of a lot of promotion on that, on the other socials before it came out.
Yeah, it was huge. It was quite a lot.
Yeah, so that came out also. I'd probably recommend, if you can do that and you have the time and ability to do that, I'd recommend that. The guys I think we're working with and the guys we work with, generally, we always recommend a strategy around that, a promotion strategy. We also recommend a launch strategy. Unfortunately, I can't get into that today just because we don't have enough time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would recommend looking at all the other platforms to see how you start developing the segments to get them to the main channel once you launch, rather than pay for advertising, which is, I think, really tricky to make work.
Yeah, great. And we're going to make this the final question, just so we finish up on time. And for those of you who we haven't gotten back to your questions, we will get back to you separately.
Caitlin, tomorrow we're covering revenue. There's typically a lot of questions in that, but I'll spend more time on Q&A tomorrow. So anything we don't answer here or any other day, I'll try and answer tomorrow as well.
Yeah, and we've got a copy of everybody's questions today, but this is pretty relevant to what you've covered today. So Bobby Lee wants to know, can trending fall under the hero, hub, and help categories?
Yes, it can. Yeah, absolutely. It can work for all of them, because trending is basically something that's happening at a certain point in time. So you can have something that is both trending and hero, is effectively trending and evergreen at the same time. It's like, for example, pandemics, right? Like
Yep.
that would be a very big thing at the moment, but now that people will be searching for it, but then over time, even when COVID goes down, people will always be looking about things around pandemics, right? So it'll be both trending and evergreen. As hub content, you can pick a topic, because you could do, if you're doing a general show or a vlog, for example, as part of your regular programming, you could pick something that is trending, and that's fine. And then as a hero moment, yeah, absolutely. You could do a special on this trending topic, and yeah, it can technically work for all of them. Yeah. Harder to make it, it's harder to do it that way, because it's hard to find evergreen topics that are going to be trending. Like evergreen, typically established topics that are already, I guess, already exist. So that it's always going to be on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So I think, we'll wrap it up there. Again, I don't think we've gotten to everybody's questions, but we will answer them tomorrow. We'll be back again at 10 a.m. on Zoom. So we're not going to be on Facebook Live because it hasn't been operating, but you can use the same link that you got today to access the session again today. So you don't have to re-register, and you don't have to kind of try and search for a new link. It's the same one. We do have a Change a College pass to give away before we wrap up today. Were there any questions that stood out to you?
No.
Again, apart from Bobby Lee's, because we know that Bobby Lee has already got one.
Yeah. No, I think there was a lot of good comments. We got a lot of good questions today. One note, so I just want to make beforehand, I don't know if I covered it well enough, was that I wanted to bring Jenny on because she shows how a web series can also be programmed out well. Like I said, her regular releasing of content allowed time for the system to build up enough of an understanding of what the content is, and then it had a backlog of catalogs, so once people found it, to go back and watch it. Then when a particular trend came up, or a point in time came up and people were searching around a particular topic, that elevated her content too, and a lot more people came and were able to watch that from there as well. So that's it was like inadvertently a good way to program it, because it took advantage of a trend, plus it took advantage of regular programming to keep people engaged, but give the system time to serve to the right people. I've looked at the data, she's got a very good retention as well. Like the people who stay and watch are the right ones, because they're watching nearly all that content. So the retention rate's really good. So the system has a very good idea of who to serve it out to as well. So that's specifically why I think she did well with her content.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Well, I am going to select Pau, because Pau's been very engaged in asking lots of questions today, and they've been really interesting. And certainly we'll get back to your questions that didn't get answered. And I will contact you about your Change of College pass. But otherwise, we'll wrap it up there, and we'll see everyone back here at 10 a.m. tomorrow for the last session of the week.
Yep, and that's all on revenue. One other thing, very quickly to mention, guys, if you're interested in hearing more from these, because people are really interested in listening to creators, we have the podcast Creator Generation, the podcast we do. Every week we just interview a top creator in different categories. Check that out, because that is, it's got a ton of interviews, but I'll put the link up tomorrow in tomorrow's chat.
Perfect. Excellent. All right. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow.